Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Julie Mann, and I show people how they can live healthy, happy, sustainable lives by changing their habits and using cutting-edge products that help them to age well. And I'm absolutely delighted because today I'm joined by Daimon Sweeney, and he is the founder of Neuromastery, which is absolutely fascinating. And he's actually going to talk today about habits, but he's actually going to talk about what habits actually are. So I'm going to hand straight over to you, Daimon, for you to explain. And yeah, look forward to hearing what you've got to say.
All righty. I look forward to sharing it. Thank you. Well, okay, so what is a habit? A habit is a collection of thoughts, feelings, and actions, right? And a repeated collection, a collection that we repeat. And so if you look more deeply at that though, where do those things live? The kind of my EMC squared, my version of the EMC squared is that they are neural networks, okay? Everything you believe, everything you know, everything you've ever learned, consciously or unconsciously, all your assumptions, all your fears, all your patterns, all your memories are neural networks. And if we could delete the neural network, then whatever that is would disappear. And that's been scientifically proven, right? So there's a new science, a new piece of neuroscience called memory reconsolidation, which details the 5 steps that the brain uses to undo existing neural networks, or rather to add information to them, which might be to neutralize them, take them apart so that they don't exist anymore. So the 5 steps are that you identify the neural network, which can be tricky. Sometimes it's really obvious, but like if you're afraid of snakes, that's a really obvious one. But the one that keeps you from moving forward in your life, that's not so obvious, right? It might be more than one. Okay, so you identify the neural network, and then you activate it, and that's usually easy. You just think about snakes, it's activated, right? Not hard. You activate it, and then you interrupt it, and that's the crucial step because, well, it's one crucial step because when you interrupt what the brain expects in its unconscious processing and its procedural learning, which is what it really is, procedural learning is just learn how to do the thing, all the things you do automatically, like, you know how to tie your shoes automatically, right? That's procedural learning, okay? So habits operate on procedural learning as well. They're automatic. You don't think about them. It's just, stimulus response. So, but when you interrupt that process, the brain goes, whoa, okay, what's going on? Something new is happening here. What is it? Is there something I need to learn? And then, so that, excuse me, that opens up a window of opportunity because the synapses, the connections between the neurons are now labile. They're available for change. Okay, they haven't changed, but they're available for change. So if you put in the right information, useful information at that point, your neural networks actually literally change. They rewire themselves on the spot, right? So think about it. How long does it take, if you touch something that's unexpectedly hot, how long does it take your brain to figure out that that's hot and not to touch it again? No time, right?
Almost instant, isn't it?
Instant, yeah. Okay, that's how fast your brain can reconfigure itself, okay? Particularly in response to negatives. Okay, it's a little slower on the positives. Okay, but that's an example. So, so right there on the spot, your brain will rewire itself if it has the proper new information. So we identify, activate, interrupt, and then relearn. That's the new proper, new information that's going in. And then there's reconsolidate, which is, so now the neural networks have taken a new form, and then you reconsolidate, they lock back down, okay? So it's very much like editing a document, an online document. You find it, you access it, you open it, you make changes, and then you save it. So it's very much like that, okay? So, okay, so habits, so neural networks are maintained by what I call charge. And you can tell how intensely something is charged or not. It's how intense you react to it. And so I have built these 5 steps. Okay, so I did EFT for 10 years. Okay, if people are familiar, emotional freedom techniques, tapping. Okay, so I learned that the meridian points are very powerful in creating change. But I got to the kind of the end of what I could do with EFT that it didn't really do everything I personally needed, right? And so I kept looking, and finally I asked, well, why is it hard to change? Why is it hard for people to change habits, for instance, ways of attitudes, beliefs, fears, and so on? Why is it hard to change? And I realized that there is that not only are they neural networks, but there's actually a resistance to change. And that goes back to evolutionary psychology, where stability was an important thing to maintain the continuity of the group, the tribe, whatever, even before tribes. There had been life and death experience that came into learning how do you deal with tigers and lions and bears and all that stuff. So that had to get passed down from generation to generation. You didn't want to figure that stuff out on the spot, right? A little late for that. So if somebody had, died finding a way to do that, you needed to know that. Okay. So we have what is called implicit learning. So as babies, we take on whatever is around us. That's how we learn language, right? It's just through exposure. We just learn it. And that's how we take on our attitudes and beliefs and many patterns. We just absorb them from our parents and other people. So that's one way that we acquire these neural networks, these patterns. The other is by trauma, basically. So either habit or trauma, right? So, if you're in a car accident, you might become afraid of riding in cars, okay, for a simple example. Okay, very reasonably. If you never ride in another car, you'll probably never have another car accident, but it could be kind of inconvenient, right? So we have resistance to change. I mean, that's the big problem, right? If somebody tries to change, there's resistance. I mean, why can't you just start eating perfectly and exercising perfectly and doing everything perfectly? We know how to do that, right? Experts have told us over and over how to do it. Why don't we just do it? It's because we have this status quo maintenance program, is what I call it, or SQMP, SQMP for short. And its job is to maintain the status quo. It's to maintain what you have done up until now, because for one, whatever you've been doing has kept you alive. Anything else is unknown and therefore potentially dangerous. And so it says, don't do it. So biological survival is the only thing it cares about. It doesn't care if you're happy, doesn't care if you're satisfied, fulfilled, etc. If you're physically alive, that's good enough. Okay. And the other, so that's on the personal level. On the cultural or group level, you're maintaining what has been learned so you can pass it on to the next generation. Okay, so it's a very conservative kind of thing that goes on. I think we're all hardwired with this. It's what's called resistance. It's often called ego. My ego made me do it. And it's none of those things. It's just a neutral program. All it does is try to reproduce what is familiar. And if you have good habits, it will support you in doing those. If you eat well and then you're in a place where all there is junk food, you're going to be pretty uncomfortable, right? So it will support you in doing good things as well as bad. It's completely neutral. Just whatever's been going on, it will try to reproduce that. So what do we do with all this? What's the practical use of all this? In going over those 5 steps of memory reconsolidation, I realized that I had the perfect thing to insert at the relearn place step, which was using the meridian points, which I had learned from EFT. And so now I've created something I call Neuromastery over the last dozen years, which uses memory reconsolidation, the science, I call it the neuroscience of rapid change, incorporates the meridian points to create rapid changes in people that are lasting. Now, not everything is instant, but a lot of things are really, really fast, much faster than anything else I know. So habits are neural networks. And now we have the science of how to change neural networks. And now with Neuromastery, we have techniques directly based on the science that change neural networks. So that's what I want to let people know. And and when you are, no matter what you do, however you're changing your habits, you are changing neural networks. So you can just think of it that way. And you don't have to think of all the emotional aspects of everything. You are literally rewiring your brain. And so I've just been looking for the fastest, best way to do that. And I encourage everybody to get skillful at doing it because, you know, it makes life better.
Life is more fun and more productive.
Life is more fun. Life is better, more productive, more creative, more relaxed, more connected, all those things.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Damon, I'm going to put all your links below this video. So anyone watching, please do check it all out. But one of the things you mentioned was really the kind of third stage, which was the interruption. So if someone right now isn't able to do your program, is there a way that they can, you know, facilitate this interruption or have someone else do that so that then they can start to change? Or is that, no, that's not possible?
No, it's easy. It actually just anything new, like think of it from another direction, turn it upside down, you know, imagine it backwards, something like that. Do a visualization when you normally don't. You know, just anything like that. You know, give it a name and talk to it like it's a person. You know, anything like that will tell your brain that something new is going on.
Okay, I was imagining that maybe when you say interrupt, that it might be, you know, like a sound or you know, that somebody claps and it kind of startles you and when you're in the thought. But no, you're talking about.
I'm talking about interrupting the pattern of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Not just an outside interruption. No.
Right.
Not
so
just a carbon.
Consciously doing that, or you're doing your program and
you're using a technique that does it for you. Yes. Yeah. But then you still haven't changed anything. You've opened up the possibility of change, but then you have to put in new learning. Okay. And I do it with meridian points because everybody has them. And they essentially, they take fight, flight, or freeze out of your nervous system. So you're taking that out of the habit pattern. And that's a lot of what drives habits. It's what keeps the charge up. So if you're taking the charge off of the neural network, and when there's not any charge on it, they fall apart.
Yeah. Wow. Brilliant. Absolutely fascinating, Damon. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to put all of Damon's links below. Thank you ever so much, everyone, for watching. And thank you, Damon, for sharing that information. Brilliant.
My pleasure, Julie. Thank you for the opportunity.